Hi there, welcome to the lab. Today, we're going to have a look at crimpers. So crimpers are, let's say, electronics adjacent because they have to do with a lot of electrical things. And I've always wondered what the difference is between these crimpers and the terminals and stuff like that. And because of that, I thought it would be an interesting idea to get a few different kinds of crimpers that are all meant to do the same thing and have a look at the differences between them and see if there's a difference in performance, see if there's anything to really be concerned about, or whether any one of them will do a satisfactory job. Before we get into the nitty gritty, I just want to ask that if you found this video to be helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Questions and comments are welcome, the feedback is appreciated, and it helps me figure out where to focus my activity. Now, let's have a look at what we're going to be trying out. I have these 4 different crimpers that we're going to have a look at. All of these crimpers are designed to do the same kinds of terminals. They're called insulated terminals. I've got these name brand terminals here and then some miscellaneous off-brand ones that I don't know where those came from. And we're just going to have a look and see how all of these things work, talk about the right way to do the crimping, and things like that. So with the 4 crimpers, there's this Klein 3005 crimper. There's this one from Colors, which is called an HS-30J. All right. There's another one from Colors called an LY-03C. And then this one from Titan, model 11477. Now, all of these are intended to crimp these terminals, and they're called insulated terminals because they've got this vinyl insulation here at the end. Some terminals have heat shrink connectors. That's a different topic. Some have no insulation. That's a different topic. And so there are literally dozens of different kinds of crimp heads designed to do the different kinds of terminals. Now, one of the things you'll notice right off the bat is that the terminals here, they come in 3 different colors. And the colors of the terminals are meant to match the size of various slots on the crimpers. And so I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here on the crimpers. You can see on each of the crimpers there's a yellow, a blue, and a red spot, and that corresponds to the color of the terminals. Yellow with yellow, blue with blue, and red with red, of course. And those are all designed to accommodate different sizes of wire. In general, the yellow is intended for 10 to 12 gauge wire. The blue is intended for 14 and 16 gauge wire. And then the red is intended for 16 to 22 gauge, sometimes 18 to 22 gauge. That kind of varies a little bit. Another thing that's usually handy to have when you're doing the crimping is a wire stripper. I tend to use a stripper like this because this little stop at the end here gives you just the right amount of wire stripped off the end. For example, I've got some wire here, and when I put it into the stripper, you can see it goes up against that little stop. And so then when I strip, I get exactly the right amount of wire, of insulation stripped off the end. Now, of course, the stripper is adjustable a little bit, so this stop, you can see it moves along like that. And so we can adjust how much insulation to remove, and there's a little bit of a gauge here that might be hard to see, but it allows me to adjust in fairly small increments the amount of insulation to remove. But in general, for these terminals that you see, a 1/4 inch is the right amount of insulation to remove. I want to make sure to go over the proper steps for crimping one of these connectors so that when you do it, you're giving yourself the best chance for a successful, good crimp. The first thing you have to do is you've got to, of course, match the wire to the terminal. And so this is 14 gauge stranded wire. And that means that it's matched to one of these blue terminals. And in general, with these terminals, there should be some indication of how much to strip, but usually it's 1/4 inch, and that's what the tool is set to. And so I'm going to strip 1/4 inch of wire from the end with this automatic stripper. And so you can see that there's just a very little bit of wire there at the end. And when I take that and I put the terminal over, you can see that the insulation will get stuck on the metal barrel inside, and the wire itself comes just to the end of the barrel on this side. And so that's what the right conditions are for starting before we crimp. Then we want to take this wire along with the terminal on it, and we want to insert it into the crimping tool so that it's properly seated in the jaws. Now I'm going to take the wire out a little bit, and you can often, if you're dealing with decent terminals and good crimpers, you can get the terminal situated in the jaws so that it's oriented properly. And oops, that fell out. And oriented properly means that the joint in the barrel is exactly where it should be. In this case, on this crimper, it's right at the top, because we want the sides to get compressed evenly. And so if the crimp is off center, then we won't have a good result. And maybe I'll do one with the crimper or with the terminal off center, and you'll see what I mean. But when that's set in, if you have the jaws set so they're not compressed too tightly, it won't fall out, and we can get the wire in there. And so we can see the wire at the end. And then all we have to do is make sure the wire doesn't move. And we put some pressure on the crimper, go through the cycle and release, and everything is down. We can see the impression that the crimper jaws have left on the terminal. And we can also see the wire inside, and it's been compressed by the barrel, and everything looks uniform. There's a straight, good solid crimp, and then that holds on very well and you can't pull it off. Now let's suppose you're not paying close enough attention, and you take your terminal and you put it in the jaws of your crimper, and you're kind of doing it fast, and it's a bit of a slapdash affair, and so you get it turned a little bit, so that's not quite straight, and the top of the barrel isn't quite pointing straight up. So I'm just off by a little bit, but a noticeable amount. Now if I put the wire in here, we can see the wire at the end, all ready to be crimped. Everything else is the same, fully inserted. Finish the cycle. And now I've crimped. Now when we look at the result here, you can see that it's not uniform like it was last time. So if we bring this up from last time, you can see this is the good crimp. Everything was centered and aligned. Everything looks very straight. This one looks like it's kind of been mashed together. You can see that the two halves of the barrel didn't line up properly. Now we're going to have a look at these HS-30J crimpers. So first I'm going to strip the wire here. So I've got that done. Now with these crimpers, unlike the Klein, the jaws are not symmetrical, and the instructions for these say that the orientation is you flip them upside down, and you take the terminal and you orient the terminal so that the part that's going to get squeezed is up at the top here, And so that's put in like that. Now I've tightened that a little bit. Now I can turn it over and put the wire in. Okay, and so once again, you can see the wire just peeking out at the edge there. And now crimp that. And this forms a completely different kind of impression on the terminal. You can see two little dots there. But once again, that's a good connection, and that doesn't pull off. So that's this HS-30J. Now we're going to try this LY-03C, and it's intended, like all of these, for the same kind of terminals. So strip a little bit of wire there. Now, just like the HS-30J, the crimping jaws here are asymmetrical. So once again, for these, we turn it upside down and we put the terminal in there, making sure that it fits properly and is oriented properly. Then we can turn it over, insert the wire, and once again, like always, a little bit of wire is visible at the end. And we squeeze down on that. Once again, a different type of impression left by the jaws, and also a good tight crimp. So good job there. And now we'll try the Titan, the last one in the set here. Now the jaws on the Titan are like the Klein, they're symmetric, and so we don't have to do any special flips or things. And so with those, I usually, because I'm right-handed, I usually orient them like so. Get that ready, and I've already stripped the wire. Okay, we can see the wire poking out of the edge. That's perfect. We squeeze that, and that comes out, and now we can see the impression that it's left because of its slightly different jaws. And once again, a good crimp there, and it doesn't want to come off either. So there we have it, 4 different crimping tools. Each of the crimping tools leaves a slightly different impression in the insulation because of the different kind of jaws, but they all seem to do the trick. One of the things that I'll do is I'll do a close-up shot with a still photo. Now I'm going to try out these unbranded terminals. Once again, I'm going to use the blue size, but I'm going to use a different end so we can tell a difference between the ones I did before. And so I'm going to start with the Klein. Now I'm just going to do something that's a little easier to get started. So I'll slide that on first. So I've got that slid in. That's all lined up nicely. Crimp that. And we can see the imprint here looks the same as before. That one seems good. The HS-30J. Once again, for these, we need to get the terminal set up in here with the unit kind of upside down. Okay, we can see the wire. That's how we know it's ready. Crimp that one. That's a good crimp too. Now we'll do the LY-03C. And once again, this one has a directional jaw, so we start with the crimper held upside down. And the tool like so. So that is ready now. And then we insert the wire. And we can see it at the end. Okay, that's a good. Can't pull that one off. Now, for the Titan, the jaws don't have any directionality to them. So I'm just going to get this set up, the terminal set up on the wire. So you can see that that's ready to go there. And we squeeze, and we can see that joint. And once again, that's a good crimp. So that's holding on. Now let's have a look at what would happen if I were to crimp a terminal in the wrong direction in one of these oriented crimpers. So we're going to use this one, the HS-30J, and the way I'm supposed to do it is I'm supposed to flip these over with the jaws, what I think of as upside down, and it's supposed to go in this way, but I'm going to flip it over this way, and I'm going to put the terminal in this orientation. Just make sure everything is in. So the wire's in, and we can see it's poking out at the end. Now I'm just going to squeeze everything down here. Now it was easier to crimp, and we sort of can see the pattern here. That doesn't come off too easily, but when we look at the end, that hasn't really compressed the wire very well. So this is holding on by virtue of the insulation. And that actually, with a little bit of a wiggle and a pull, that kind of comes off, because the barrel that we can see in there, that hasn't really been compressed, and there hasn't been any compression of the wire. And this is what a good crimp looks like at the end. So we can see that that end of the barrel has really been compressed quite a lot. And so it's got a good hold on the wire there. So there's a good hold on the wire and a good hold on the insulation. And even wiggling that doesn't come off. So if we orient these in the wrong way, they'll come off without too much trouble. And press. Oh. Give that a squeeze. Now we'll see. Oh, and that pulls off. I'm now going to go back to the GB connectors with the Titan, since I seem to be having some trouble with that one. So I'm just going to put the terminal, and I'm going to crimp it. And now we'll see if I can pull this one off. And so with this connector, I can't pull it off. Well, one of the things it tells me is that not only does the crimper make a difference, but the connector makes a difference. So the Titan struggled to put a good crimp on the, let's say, off-brand terminals, but with the, let's say, brand name terminals, the Titan has managed to do a good job, and I can't pull it off. In this video, I've shown how to properly use a crimper to crimp insulated terminals onto stranded wire. I compared 4 different crimpers. The crimpers are the Klein 3005CR, the HS-30J, the LY-03C, and the Titan 11477. The HS-30J and the LY-03C crimp jaws are available under many different labels. Mine both happen to be labeled as colors, but I have seen these same jaws under a variety of labels. I also used 2 different terminals. Name brand certified terminals, you see here, and unbranded economy terminals, you see there. The Klein 3005CR is a little more foolproof because the left to right direction of the terminal in the crimp jaws doesn't matter. The Klein and the 2 colors variations did a good job crimping both the name brand and the off-brand terminals. I wasn't able to pull any of the crimp terminals off. I did perform some tests where I crimped the directional terminals backwards. inspection of the crimps left me concerned, and I wasn't confident in their durability. The Titan did a good job with the name brand terminals. However, with the economy terminals, I was able to pull the terminal off following the crimp a couple of times. If I had to rank these crimpers, the Klein comes out on top because it allows the terminals to be positioned from right or left. The HS-30J and the LY-03C did a good job with both kinds of terminals, but you need to be attentive to the orientation of the terminals in the jaws. The Titan comes out at the bottom of the list. It did a good job with the name brand terminals, but struggled with the economy terminals. If you found this video to be helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time.